The phone rang at 3:17 a.m., and Caleb Turner knew, before he even opened his eyes, that whatever was on the other end of that call would rip his carefully rebuilt life wide open. 6 years of moving forward, of being the father his daughter needed, of burying a love he thought had died for good, all of it was about to come crashing back. The woman he'd once planned a future with was dying, and he was the only person who could save her. One kidney, one choice, one chance to rewrite a story that had ended in silence and regret. If you want to see how far a father will go when the past refuses to stay buried, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The apartment was dark, except for the glow of Caleb's phone vibrating relentlessly on the nightstand. He reached for it with one hand, knocking over a half-empty water glass in the process. The screen read unknown number, and for a moment he considered letting it go to voicemail. Nothing good ever came from a call at this hour, but something in his gut told him to answer. Hello? His voice was rough, still thick with sleep. Is this Caleb Turner? A woman's voice, professional but urgent.
Yeah, who's this? My name is Dr. Nina Patel. I'm calling from St. Catherine's Hospital in Hartford, Connecticut. I need to speak with you about a patient we have in critical condition. Caleb sat up, his heart already pounding. I think you have the wrong number. I don't know anyone in Hartford. There was a pause, the kind that stretches just long enough to let dread settle in.
Mr. Turner, the patient's name is Lila Hart. She was in a serious car accident earlier tonight. Her condition is critical, and we've been trying to reach her emergency contacts. Your name came up in our system as a potential donor match from a registry screening you participated in years ago. The room tilted. Lila. He hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in 6 years, hadn't allowed himself to think it for even longer. And now it was being delivered to him in the middle of the night like a piece of shrapnel he'd thought had been removed but had only been buried deeper. He couldn't find the words. Is she okay? She's alive, but her kidneys are failing. We need a transplant donor immediately, and you came up as a near-perfect match. I know this is sudden, Mr. Turner, but time is extremely limited. I need to know if you'd be willing to come in for further testing. Caleb's hand tightened around the phone. His mind was racing, but his mouth wouldn't move. The last time he'd seen Lila, she'd been standing in the doorway of the apartment they'd shared, eyes red and voice shaking, telling him she couldn't do this anymore. That they couldn't do this anymore. She'd walked out, and he'd let her go because he didn't know what else to do. And now she was dying. Mr. Turner? Yeah, I'm here. He rubbed his face, trying to force his brain to catch up. What do you need me to do? Can you come to Hartford? We'll need to run compatibility tests, but if everything checks out, we'd be looking at surgery within the next 48 hours. 48 hours. 2 days to decide whether to cut himself open for someone who'd left him behind. I have a daughter, he said, the words coming out before he could stop them. I'm a single parent. I can't just... I understand, Dr. Patel said, her tone softening slightly. But I need you to understand the severity of this. Without a transplant, Lila won't make it through the week. Caleb closed his eyes. I'll be there, he said. Give me a few hours. Odd. He didn't sleep after that. Couldn't. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the wall, trying to process what he'd just agreed to. His daughter Emma was asleep down the hall, her small body curled up under a blanket covered in cartoon dinosaurs. She was 7 years old, and she was everything to him. The reason he got up every morning. The reason he'd learned to cook halfway decent meals and braid hair and answer questions about why the sky was blue. And now he was about to risk everything for a woman who'd walked away from him. He didn't know if that made him brave or stupid, probably both. The clock on his nightstand read 3:47 a.m. Caleb stood up, his legs unsteady, and walked down the hallway to Emma's room. He pushed the door open slowly, careful not to wake her. The nightlight shaped like a crescent moon cast soft shadows across her face. She looked so peaceful, so completely unaware that her father's entire world had just been upended. He sat down on the floor next to her bed, his back against the wall, and just watched her breathe. In and out, steady and sure. This was what mattered. This little person who depended on him for everything. What the hell was he doing? He pulled out his phone and stared at it, scrolling through his contacts until he found Rebecca's name. His finger hovered over the call button. It was almost 4 in the morning. She'd be asleep. But she'd also drop everything if he needed her. She always had. He pressed call. She answered on the third ring, her voice groggy. Caleb? What's wrong? I need your help. There was rustling on the other end, the sound of her sitting up. What happened? Is Emma okay? Emma's fine. It's... He stopped, trying to figure out how to explain this. I got a call from a hospital in Hartford. Someone I used to know was in an accident. They need a kidney transplant, and I'm a match. Silence. Then, someone you used to know? Who? Lila. The silence stretched longer this time. Jesus Christ, Caleb. Rebecca's voice was sharp now, fully awake. Lila? The Lila who walked out on you 6 years ago? That Lila? Yeah. And you're actually considering this? I already said yes. You what? She wasn't yelling, but it was close. Caleb, are you out of your mind? You have a daughter. You can't just... I know what I have, he said, his voice tight. I know exactly what I have, but she's dying, Becca. If I don't do this, she's going to die. That's not your responsibility. Maybe not, but it's my choice. Rebecca exhaled hard, and he could picture her rubbing her temples the way she always did when she was frustrated. When? I need to be there in a few hours. They want to run tests, and if everything checks out, surgery's in 2 days. 2 days. She said it like she was testing the weight of the words. Okay, bring Emma to me. I'll keep her as long as you need. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We're going to talk about this when you get back. I know. Caleb? Yeah? Be careful. I mean it. I will. He hung up and sat there for a few more minutes, listening to Emma's quiet breathing. Then he stood up, kissed her forehead gently, and went to pack a bag. By the time the sun came up, Caleb had showered, dressed, and thrown together enough clothes for a few days. He made Emma her favorite breakfast, chocolate chip pancakes with way too much syrup, and tried to act like everything was normal. Where are we going, Daddy? Emma asked, her mouth full of pancake. You're going to spend a few days with Aunt Becca. Her eyes lit up. Really? Can we make cookies? I'm sure she'll let you make as many cookies as you want. Are you coming too? Not this time, kiddo. I have to go help someone. Emma tilted her head, studying him with those big brown eyes that saw way too much. Is it important? Yeah, it's really important. Okay. She went back to her pancakes, satisfied with that answer in the way only a 7-year-old could be. Caleb wished everything was that simple. No, Rebecca lived in a brick townhouse in Cambridge, 20 minutes from Caleb's apartment in Somerville. She was waiting on the porch when they pulled up, arms crossed, her expression a mix of concern and disapproval. Emma jumped out of the car and ran straight to her aunt, wrapping her arms around her waist. Aunt Becca, Daddy said we can make cookies. Did he now? Rebecca's eyes stayed on Caleb. Well, we'll have to see about that. Caleb grabbed Emma's overnight bag from the trunk and walked it up to the porch. Rebecca took it from him without a word, then crouched down to Emma's level. Hey, sweetheart, why don't you go inside and pick out which cookies we're making? I need to talk to your dad for a minute. Okay. Emma bounded inside, and Rebecca stood up, her arms crossing again. You look like hell, she said. I didn't sleep. I bet. She studied him for a long moment. You're really doing this. I'm really doing this. And you're sure? Because once you're on that table, there's no backing out. I know. Rebecca shook her head. I don't get it. After everything she put you through, after she left when you needed her most, why would you do this? Because I can't live with myself if I don't. That's not a good enough reason to risk your life, Caleb. Maybe not, but it's the only one I've got. She sighed, her expression softening just a little. How long will you be gone? I don't know. A week, maybe? Depends on how the recovery goes. And if something happens, if there are complications, then you take care of Emma. Don't say that. Becca, no. Don't you dare stand here and talk to me like you might not come back. Emma needs you. You don't get to play hero and leave her behind. I'm not trying to be a hero. I'm just trying to do the right thing. The right thing is staying here with your daughter. Caleb looked away, his jaw tight. I can't explain it, okay? I have to do this. Rebecca stared at him for a long time, then reached out and pulled him into a hug. You're an idiot, she said into his shoulder. I know. But you're my idiot, so you better come back in one piece. I will. She pulled back, her hands on his shoulders. Go. Before I change my mind and lock you in the basement. He managed a small smile. Thanks, Becca. Yeah, now get out of here.
The
drive to Hartford took just under 2 hours, but it felt like 10. Caleb kept the radio off, letting the silence press in around him. His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, and his mind kept circling back to the same memories, the ones he'd spent years trying to bury. He'd met Lila in college during his sophomore year at Boston University. She'd been sitting in the back row of an environmental policy lecture, doodling in the margins of her notebook instead of taking notes. He'd noticed her because she laughed, actually laughed out loud, at something the professor said, and when everyone turned to look at her, she'd just shrugged and kept drawing. He'd asked her out after class, fumbling through an invitation to get coffee that she'd accepted with a grin that made his chest feel tight. That first date had turned into a second, then a third, and before he knew it, they were inseparable. Lila was everything he wasn't: spontaneous, fearless, completely uninterested in playing it safe. She dragged him to protests and dive bars and midnight screenings of old movies. She made him feel alive in a way he hadn't known he was missing. They'd moved in together after graduation, splitting rent on a cramped one-bedroom in Alston. The place was a disaster: peeling wallpaper, a radiator that clanked like it was dying, neighbors who fought loud enough to hear through the walls. But it was theirs. Caleb had taken a job at a construction firm, trading his dreams of becoming an architect for steady paychecks and health insurance. Lila had thrown herself into nonprofit work, chasing grants and organizing fundraisers for causes she believed in. They'd been broke and exhausted and stupidly, recklessly happy. Until they weren't. The fights had started small. Missed dinners because Caleb was working late. Lila coming home frustrated because another funding proposal had been rejected. Little cracks that they'd ignored because they were too tired to deal with them. And then Claire happened. It had been during one of their breakups, the kind where they'd both said things they didn't mean and spent a week apart to cool off. Caleb had gone out with some guys from work, ended up at a bar, and met Claire. She was easy to talk to, uncomplicated in a way that felt like relief. One drink had turned into several, and he'd woken up the next morning in her apartment, hating himself. He'd told Lila the truth when they got back together. She'd forgiven him, or at least said she did. But things were different after that. The trust was fractured, and neither of them knew how to fix it. 2 months later, Claire had shown up at his apartment with a pregnancy test. Positive. Caleb's entire world had collapsed in that moment. Claire had been clear from the start. She didn't want to be a mother. She'd go through with the pregnancy if he wanted the baby, but after that, she was out. No custody, no co-parenting, nothing. Caleb had told her he wanted the baby. And he told Lila the same night. He could still see the look on her face. Shock, then pain, then something that looked like resignation. She'd tried to stay. She really had. She'd gone to the first ultrasound appointment with him, helped him pick out a crib, even started reading parenting books. But the weight of it had been too much. A baby that wasn't hers, with a woman Caleb had slept with during one of their worst moments. Every time she looked at him, he could see the hurt in her eyes. 3 months before Emma was born, Lila had packed her things and left. "I can't do this," she'd said, her voice shaking. "I love you, Caleb, but I can't be part of this." He'd wanted to beg her to stay, to tell her they could figure it out, that they could make it work. But he'd looked at her standing there with tears streaming down her face, and he'd known she was right. So he'd let her go. And he'd spent the next 6 years convincing himself it was for the best. Caleb pulled into the hospital parking lot just after 9 a.m. St. Catherine's was a sprawling complex of brick buildings and glass towers, the kind of place that looked sterile and efficient. He sat in his car for a few minutes, staring at the entrance, trying to steady his breathing. This was it. He grabbed his bag from the passenger seat and headed inside. The lobby was bright and busy, filled with people in scrubs and lab coats moving with purpose. Caleb approached the information desk, where a woman with graying hair and a kind smile looked up at him. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for Dr. Nina Patel. She's expecting me." The woman typed something into her computer. "Name?" "Caleb Turner." "Ah, yes. She left a message for you. Take the elevator to the 4th floor, transplant unit. Someone will meet you there." "Thanks." The elevator ride felt longer than it should have. Caleb watched the numbers climb, 1, 2, 3, 4. and tried not to think about what he was walking into. The fourth floor was quieter than the lobby. A nurse at the desk looked up when he stepped off the elevator. "Caleb Turner? That's me? Dr. Patel's in her office. I'll take you back." He followed her through a maze of hallways until they reached a small office with a nameplate on the door. Dr. Nina Patel, transplant surgery. The nurse knocked once, then opened the door. Dr. Patel was sitting behind a desk cluttered with files and medical journals. She looked up and stood immediately, extending her hand. "Mr. Turner? Thank you for coming." "Just Caleb." "Caleb?" She gestured to a chair. "Please, sit." He did, setting his bag on the floor beside him. Dr. Patel sat down across from him, her expression serious but not unkind. "I know this is overwhelming," she said, "so I'm going to walk you through everything step by step. First, we need to run a series of tests to confirm compatibility. Blood work, tissue typing, imaging to make sure your kidney is healthy. If everything checks out, we'll schedule the surgery." "How long does that take?" "The tests? A few hours. The results? By tonight. If you're still a match, and I'm confident you will be, we'll do the transplant tomorrow morning." "Tomorrow?" Caleb's stomach twisted. "What are the risks?" he asked. Dr. Patel didn't sugarcoat it. "Any surgery carries risks: infection, bleeding, adverse reactions to anesthesia. With kidney donation specifically, there's a small chance of complications that could affect your remaining kidney. Long-term, most donors live perfectly normal lives with one kidney, but you'll need to be careful, stay hydrated, avoid certain medications, monitor your health. And the recovery? You'll be in the hospital for 3 to 5 days. After that, 6 to 8 weeks before you're fully recovered. No heavy lifting, no strenuous activity. You'll need someone to help you during that time." Caleb nodded slowly, processing it all. "Can I see her?" he asked. "Lila?" Dr. Patel hesitated. "She's sedated right now. The trauma from the accident was significant, and we're keeping her under to manage the pain and give her body time to stabilize." "What happened?" "The accident, I mean. She was T-boned by a drunk driver running a red light. The impact crushed the driver's side of her car. She's lucky to be alive." Caleb felt the air leave his lungs. Her injuries? Multiple broken ribs, fractured collarbone, internal bleeding that we managed to stop. But the most critical issue is her kidneys. The trauma caused acute renal failure. Without a transplant, she won't survive. He closed his eyes, trying to push away the image of Lila trapped in a mangled car, bleeding and broken. "I need to see her," he said again. Dr. Patel studied him for a moment, then nodded. "All right, but only for a few minutes. We need to get started on your tests." The ICU was on the same floor, just down the hall. Dr. Patel led him through a set of double doors into a quiet, dimly lit area where the only sounds were the hum of machines and the occasional beep of monitors. They stopped in front of a glass-walled room, and Dr. Patel stepped aside. 5 minutes, she said softly. Caleb nodded and walked inside. Lila was lying in the hospital bed, her body small and fragile under the white sheets. Her face was pale, bruised along the left side where the impact had hit. Dark hair, once wild and full of life, was now tangled and dull against the pillow. Tubes ran from her arms to IV bags hanging beside the bed, and a ventilator mask covered her nose and mouth, helping her breathe. She looked nothing like the Lila he remembered, and yet she was still her. Caleb pulled a chair up beside the bed and sat down, his hands folded in his lap. He didn't know what to say, didn't know if she could even hear him, but he spoke anyway. "Hey, Lila," he said quietly. "It's me, Caleb." The machines beeped in response, nothing else. "I don't know if you can hear me. I don't even know if I should be here, but—" He stopped, his throat tight. "They said you need help, and I guess I'm the one who can give it to you." He looked down at his hands, at the calluses from years of construction work, at the scar on his thumb from a nail gun accident. "I'm scared," he admitted. "I'm terrified, actually. Not of the surgery. I mean, yeah, that's scary too. But I'm more scared of what this means, of seeing you again after all this time, of what happens if you wake up and—" He couldn't finish that sentence. Instead, he reached out and gently took her hand. It was cold, limp, but it was still hers. "I never stopped thinking about you," he said,
his voice barely above a whisper. I tried. I really did. I told myself it was over, that we were done, that it was better this way. But every time Emma does something that reminds me of you, every time she laughs or asks a question I don't know how to answer, I think about what we could have been. His eyes burned, and he blinked hard. I don't know why I'm telling you this. Maybe because I need to say it out loud. Maybe because I'm hoping some part of you can hear me and understand that I never blamed you for leaving. I missed you. And now you're here, and I'm about to give you a piece of myself, and I don't know what that makes us. He sat there for a few more minutes, just holding her hand before Dr. Patel knocked softly on the glass. Time's up, Caleb. He stood, gently placed Lila's hand back on the bed, and walked out without looking back. The testing took most of the day. Blood draws, scans, x-rays, questions about his medical history. By the time they finished, it was after 6 p.m., and Caleb was exhausted. Dr. Patel found him in the waiting area, a folder in her hands. You're a perfect match, she said, sitting down beside him. Better than we could have hoped for. So we're doing this. If you're still willing, yes. Surgery's scheduled for tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Caleb nodded, feeling the weight of it settle over him. There's one more thing, Dr. Patel said. Lila doesn't know it's you. He looked at her. What? She was unconscious when we found your information in the registry. We haven't told her anything yet. I thought you might want to be the one to tell her. Caleb's heart was pounding. When will she wake up? We're going to start bringing her out of sedation tonight. If all goes well, she should be conscious by tomorrow afternoon, after the surgery. Yes. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. So she'll wake up with my kidney inside her, and then I'll tell her. That's up to you, but yes, that's how it would work. Caleb didn't know what to say to that. That night, Caleb stayed in a hospital room that smelled like disinfectant and regret. He tried to sleep, but every time he closed his eyes, his mind raced. He thought about Emma, about Rebecca, about the life he'd built in Boston. He thought about the surgery, about what could go wrong, about the fact that he was willingly putting himself under a knife for someone who'd walked away. And he thought about Lila, about the girl who'd dragged him to midnight movies and made him believe the world was bigger than he'd imagined, about the woman who'd left because staying hurt too much. He called Rebecca one more time. How's Emma? She's asleep. We made 3 batches of cookies, and she ate way too much dough. She's going to have a stomachache in the morning. Caleb smiled despite himself. Sorry. Don't be. She's happy. How are you? Surgery's tomorrow. I know. How are you? He didn't know how to answer that. I'm okay. Liar. Yeah. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. You don't have to do this, you know. You can still back out. I can't. Why not? Because if I don't, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering if I could have saved her, and I can't live with that. What if something happens to you? What if you don't wake up? Then you take care of Emma. You make sure she knows I love her. Caleb, I mean it, Becca. Promise me. Her voice cracked. I promise, but you're coming back. You hear me? You're coming back. I'll do my best. That's not good enough. It's all I've got. Chug. The last thing Caleb remembered before the anesthesia kicked in was the surgical lights above him, blindingly bright, and the voice of the anesthesiologist telling him to count backward from 10. He made it to 7 before everything went dark. Cool. When he woke up, the world was a blur of white and beeping machines. His side felt like it had been split open and stitched back together with fire. He tried to move, but pain shot through him, sharp and immediate. Easy, Mr. Turner, a nurse's voice, calm and steady. Don't try to move yet. He blinked, trying to focus. Lila? The transplant was successful. She's stable. Relief washed over him, so strong it almost hurt. You did good, the nurse said, adjusting something on one of the monitors. Now you need to rest and let your body heal. Caleb closed his eyes, too exhausted to do anything else. She was alive. He'd saved her. And now, for better or worse, their lives were connected again. The pain was what woke him fully the second time. Not the dull ache he'd felt before, but something sharper, more insistent, like his body was reminding him that he'd just had an organ cut out of him and there would be consequences.
A different nurse was checking his vitals now, an older woman with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She noticed his eyes open and gave him a small smile. "Welcome back. How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck," Caleb managed, his voice hoarse. "That's about right. The anesthesia is wearing off, so you're going to feel pretty rough for a while. We've got you on pain medication, but it's not going to take it all away." "Great." She made a note on her clipboard. "Dr. Patel will be by to check on you in a bit. In the meantime, try to rest. Your body's been through a lot." Rest. Right. Like that was going to happen when his mind was spinning with everything that had just gone down. The nurse left, and Caleb was alone with the beeping machines and his own thoughts. He stared at the ceiling tiles, counting them because it was easier than thinking about what came next. 42 tiles. Some of them had water stains. One had a crack running through the middle. He wondered if Lila was awake yet, if she knew. His phone buzzed on the side table. He reached for it, wincing at the movement. 3 missed calls from Rebecca, 2 texts from her asking if he was okay, and 1 message from a number he didn't recognize. He opened that one first. "This is Dr. Patel. Leela is awake and asking questions. Call me when you can." His stomach dropped. Before he could process that, the door opened again, and Dr. Patel herself walked in. She looked tired but satisfied, the way people do when they've just pulled off something difficult. "How's the patient?" she asked, pulling up a chair beside his bed. "Alive." "That's a good start." She glanced at the monitors, then back at him. The surgery went better than expected. Clean extraction, no complications. Lila's body is already accepting the kidney. Her numbers are improving by the hour. "You said she's awake?" "Yes, about an hour ago. She's confused, which is normal after being sedated for so long. But she's lucid, and she's asking about who donated the kidney." Caleb's heart was pounding now. "What did you tell her?" "Nothing. I thought you'd want to be the one to tell her." "I don't know what to say." Dr. Patel's expression softened. "You don't have to have it all figured out. Just tell her the truth." "The truth?" Caleb let out a breath that was almost a laugh. "The truth is, I don't know why I did this." "Not really." "I think you do. You're just afraid to admit it." Before he could respond, his phone buzzed again. "Rebecca." "I should take this," he said. Dr. Patel nodded and stood. "I'll check back in a couple hours. Think about what you want to say to her." She left, and Caleb answered the call. "Hey, how are you?" Rebecca's voice was tight with worry. "I'm okay. Surgery went fine. And Lila? She's stable. They said she's going to make it." There was a long pause. "So you did it. You actually did it." "Yeah." "How do you feel?" "Like someone cut me open and took something out." "That's not what I meant." Caleb closed his eyes. "I don't know, Becca. Ask me again in a week." "She doesn't know yet, does she?" "No, she just woke up. They want me to tell her." "And are you going to?" "I don't have much choice." Rebecca sighed. "What are you going to say?" "I have no idea." "Well, you better figure it out, because once she knows, everything's going to change." "I know." "Emma wants to talk to you. Hold on." There was rustling, and then his daughter's voice came through, bright and completely oblivious to how complicated his life had just become. "Daddy." "Hey, sweetheart. How are you?" "Good. Me and Aunt Becca made chocolate chip cookies and sugar cookies and snickerdoodles. I helped mix everything, and I only spilled the flour once. That sounds amazing." "When are you coming home?" The question hit harder than it should have. "Soon, kiddo. I just need a few more days to help my friend." "Is your friend okay now?" "Yeah, she's going to be okay." "Good. I miss you." "I miss you too, Emma. So much. Aunt Becca says I can't have any more cookies until after dinner. That's not fair." Despite everything, Caleb smiled. "Aunt Becca's right. You don't want a stomachache." "Yes, I do. Cookies are worth it." "We'll make some together when I get home, okay?" "Okay. Love you, Daddy." "Love you too, baby." Rebecca came back on the line. "She's fine. Don't worry about her. Just focus on getting better. Thanks for doing this." "You're my brother. What else am I going to do?" She paused. "Call me after you talk to her. I want to know how it goes." "I will." After they hung up, Caleb lay there in the silence, trying to imagine how that conversation was going to go. "Hi, Lila. Remember me? The guy you left 6 years ago?" Yeah, I just gave you one of my kidneys. Surprise. He drifted in and out of sleep for the next few hours, the pain medication making everything feel distant and fuzzy. Dreams came in fragments. Lila laughing at something he'd said in that tiny apartment in Alston. Emma taking her first steps. Claire's voice on the phone telling him she was pregnant. All of it tangled together until he couldn't tell what was memory and what was his brain just making things up. When he finally came fully awake again, the light outside had shifted. Late afternoon, maybe early evening. His mouth was dry, and his side felt like it was on fire despite the medication. Dr. Patel appeared in the doorway, as if she'd been waiting for him to wake up. "She's asking for you," she said. "Well, not exactly. She's asking about the donor, but I think you should go see her." Caleb's heart kicked against his ribs. "Now? If you're up for it, I won't force you. But Caleb, she deserves to know." "I know. Can you walk?" "I don't think so." "Wheelchair it is, then." She disappeared and came back with a wheelchair and another nurse. Between the two of them, they got Caleb out of bed and into the chair. Every movement sent pain shooting through his side, but he gritted his teeth and didn't complain. They wheeled him down the hallway, past other rooms where other people were fighting their own battles, until they reached the ICU. Dr. Patel stopped outside Lila's room. 5 minutes, she said, and if you start feeling weak or dizzy, you tell someone immediately. Got it. The nurse wheeled him inside, positioned him near the bed, then stepped back to give them space, but stayed close enough to intervene if needed. Lila was sitting up slightly, propped against pillows. Her eyes were open now, clearer than they'd been before, though still clouded with exhaustion and medication. She turned when she heard the wheelchair, and when she saw him, everything stopped. For a long moment, neither of them said anything. Then Lila's eyes filled with tears. "Caleb?" Her voice was rough, barely above a whisper, but it was her, really her. "Hey," he said, because he couldn't think of anything else. "What are you—" She looked around, confused, then back at him. Her eyes dropped to the wheelchair, to the hospital gown he was wearing, to the IV still attached to his arm. "Why are you in a wheelchair? What happened to you?" This was it, the moment everything changed. "I gave you a kidney," he said simply. The words hung in the air between them. Lila stared at him like she hadn't heard right, like her brain was trying to process something that didn't make sense. "What? You needed a transplant. I was a match, so I gave you a kidney." "No." She shook her head, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "No, you didn't. You couldn't have—" "I did. Caleb, you have a daughter. You have a life. You can't just—" Her voice broke. "Why would you do that?" "Because you were dying. That's not your problem. It felt like my problem." Lila pressed her hands to her face, her whole body shaking. "This is insane. You shouldn't have— I didn't ask for this." "I know." "Then why?" He looked at her, really looked at her, and all the reasons he'd tried to convince himself of fell away. The truth was simpler and more complicated than anything he could explain. "Because it was you," he said. "Because 6 years ago, you were the most important person in my world, and I guess some part of me never stopped feeling that way." Lila lowered her hand, staring at him with an expression he couldn't read. "We broke up, Caleb. I left. We ended." "I know. So why would you risk everything for someone who walked away?" "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe I just couldn't live with myself if I didn't, but it's done now. You've got my kidney, and you're alive, and I'm okay with that." She looked away, her jaw tight. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." "Yes, I do. You gave me a piece of yourself. That's not— People don't just do that." "Well, I did." The nurse stepped forward. "Mr. Turner, you need to get back to your room. You shouldn't be out of bed this long." Caleb nodded, suddenly aware of how exhausted he felt, how much pain was breaking through the medication. "I'll come back tomorrow, if you want." Lila didn't answer right away. She just looked at him, her eyes red and her expression torn between gratitude and something that looked like anger. "Okay," she said finally. "Tomorrow." The nurse wheeled him out and Caleb didn't look back. He couldn't. If he did, he might see regret on her face, or worse, pity, and he didn't think he could handle either. When they got him settled in his room again, the pain hit harder than before. He'd pushed himself too far and his body was making him pay for it. The nurse adjusted his medication,
and within minutes, the sharp edges started to blur. But even as sleep pulled him under, he could still see Lila's face. The shock, the tears, the way she'd looked at him like he'd just made everything infinitely more complicated, which he supposed he had.
The next morning came too fast and too slow at the same time. Caleb woke to sunlight streaming through the window and a dull ache that had settled into every corner of his body. A different nurse, younger this time, with kind eyes, brought him breakfast. Bland oatmeal and toast that he forced down because he knew he needed the energy. "You have a visitor," she said as she cleared the tray. "Your sister's in the waiting room with a little girl." Caleb's heart lifted. "Can you send them in? Doctor said 10 minutes. You're still supposed to be resting." 10 minutes is fine." Rebecca appeared in the doorway a moment later, Emma's hand clutched in hers. His daughter's face lit up when she saw him. "Daddy!" She started to run toward him, but Rebecca held her back. "Careful, Em. Remember what we talked about?" Emma nodded seriously and approached the bed slowly, carefully. "Does it hurt?" "A little bit, but I'm okay. Can I hug you?" Gentle hug. She climbed up on the edge of the bed, moving like she was handling something fragile, and wrapped her arms around his neck. Caleb closed his eyes and breathed in the smell of her, bubblegum shampoo, and the cookies she'd probably eaten for breakfast. "I made you a picture," Emma said, pulling back and digging in her backpack. She produced a piece of construction paper covered in crayon drawings. "It's you and me and Aunt Becca. And that's our apartment, and that's the park where we go on Saturdays." "It's perfect," Caleb said, his throat tight. "Thank you, sweetheart." Rebecca stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed. She looked tired. "How are you?" "Been better. Been worse." "Did you talk to her?" Caleb glanced at Emma, who was now exploring the buttons on the hospital bed. "Yeah." "And?" "And it's complicated." "Everything with you is complicated." Emma looked up. "Who's complicated?" "Nobody, kiddo," Caleb said. "Aunt Becca's just being Aunt Becca." "Can I push this button?" "Go ahead." The bed started to recline and Emma giggled. Rebecca watched her for a moment, then turned back to Caleb, her voice lower. "She knows it was you." "Yeah." "How'd she take it?" "About how you'd expect." Shock, tears, a lot of "why would you do this?" questions. "What did you tell her?" "The truth. That I couldn't let her die." Rebecca studied him. "That's not the whole truth, though, is it?" Before he could answer, Emma pressed another button and the bed started to rise. She laughed, delighted, and Caleb couldn't help but smile despite everything. Maybe leave the buttons alone for a minute," Rebecca said gently. "Okay." Emma climbed back up next to Caleb, settling against his good side. "When are you coming home?" "A few more days, probably." "But you're okay?" "Yeah, baby, I'm okay." She seemed satisfied with that answer. Rebecca, on the other hand, still looked worried. "We should let you rest," she said. "Come on, Em." "But we just got here." "And Daddy needs to sleep so he can get better and come home." Emma sighed dramatically but climbed down from the bed. She gave Caleb one more careful hug. "Love you, Daddy." "Love you too, kiddo." After they left, the room felt emptier than before. Caleb lay there staring at Emma's drawing, trying not to think about what came next. Dr. Patel stopped by around noon. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck, run over twice, and then hit again." "That's fairly accurate." She checked his chart. "Your vitals look good. If you keep healing at this rate, we might be able to discharge you in 3 or 4 days." "What about Lila?" "She's doing remarkably well. The kidney's functioning perfectly. Her other injuries are healing. Physically, she's going to be fine." "And mentally?" Dr. Patel gave him a look. "That's between the two of you. She wants to see me again?" "She didn't say, but I think you should go talk to her. Really talk. Because right now you've both got a lot of unresolved things hanging in the air, and that's not good for either of you." After she left, Caleb spent the rest of the afternoon trying to work up the courage. Around 3, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. "Hello?" "It's me." Lila's voice, quieter than yesterday but steadier. His chest tightened. "Hey, can you come back? To my room, I mean. If you're feeling up to it." "Yeah, I can do that." "Okay, I'll be here." A pause. "Obviously." He almost smiled. "I'll be there in a few minutes." He called for a nurse, and 20 minutes later he was back in the wheelchair, being rolled down to the ICU. His side hurt worse today, the pain medication not quite keeping up, but he didn't care. When he got to Lila's room, she was sitting up more than yesterday, her color better. She'd pulled her hair back into a messy ponytail, and someone had brought her a change of clothes, gray sweatpants and a hospital t-shirt. She looked more like herself, more like the Lila he remembered. The nurse positioned him by the bed and left, pulling the door mostly closed to give them privacy. "Hi," Lila said. "Hi." An awkward silence stretched between them. Caleb had faced down angry foremen on construction sites, dealt with Emma's worst tantrums, survived Claire walking out on their daughter. But sitting here with Lila felt harder than all of that combined. "I didn't sleep last night," she said finally. "I kept thinking about what you did, trying to make sense of it." "Did you? No?" She looked down at her hands, at the IV still taped to her arm. "I don't understand why you do this. We haven't spoken in 6 years, Caleb. 6 years. And you gave me a kidney like it was nothing. It wasn't nothing." "Then what was it?" He took a breath, trying to find the right words. "When Dr. Patel called me and told me you needed help, my first thought was no, absolutely not. I've got a daughter, a life, responsibilities. I can't just drop everything for someone who left me." Lila flinched, but she didn't interrupt. "But then I started thinking about what it would mean if I said no. If I just walked away and let you die when I could have saved you, and I realized I couldn't do that. Not to you, not even after everything. Why not? I walked away from you when you needed me. That was different." "How?" "Because you were protecting yourself. You couldn't handle what my life had become, and I don't blame you for that. What was I supposed to do? Force you to stay and watch you be miserable?" Lila's eyes filled with tears again. "I shouldn't have left. I was a coward." "You were honest. That's not the same thing." "I loved you, Caleb. I loved you so much, and I couldn't watch you become a father to someone else's baby. Every time I looked at you, I thought about what we could have had if things had been different, and it hurt too much." "I know." "Do you?" "Because I don't think you do." Her voice cracked. "I left because staying was killing me. And now you've gone and done this insane, impossible thing, and I don't know what you expect from me." "I don't expect anything." "Bullshit." She wiped at her eyes angrily. "People don't give up organs for nothing. What do you want, Caleb? Forgiveness? A second chance?" "What?" He looked at her for a long moment, at the tears on her cheeks and the anger in her eyes and the fear underneath all of it. "I want you to live," he said quietly. "That's it. Everything else, we can figure it out later. Or not. But at least you'll be alive to make that choice." Lila stared at him, her expression torn. "I don't deserve this. Maybe not. But you've got it anyway." She laughed, but it came out more like a sob. "You're insane. You know that, right?" "Yeah, I'm starting to realize." They sat in silence for a while. Not comfortable exactly, but less sharp than before, like they were both too exhausted to keep their guards up. "Tell me about your daughter," Lila said quietly. "Emma, right?" Caleb felt something in his chest ease just a little. "Yeah, Emma. She's 7. Smart as hell, stubborn as hell, talks more than any human being I've ever met." "What's she like?" "She's everything." He smiled despite himself. "She loves dinosaurs and hates broccoli. She asked me last week if clouds have feelings, and I didn't know how to answer that. So we spent an hour making up stories about sad clouds and happy clouds." Lila smiled, a real one this time. "She sounds amazing." "She is. She's the best thing that ever happened to me." "Do you ever regret it, keeping her?" "Not for a second. I regret how it happened. I regret hurting you, but I don't regret Emma." Lila nodded slowly. "I'm glad. I mean it. I'm glad you have her." "What about you? What have you been doing for 6 years?" She let out a long breath. "Working, mostly. I finally got a job with an environmental nonprofit in Hartford. It's not everything I wanted, but it's something. I've been running clean water initiatives in low-income communities, trying to make a difference." "That's good. You always wanted to do that." "Yeah." She looked out the window at the parking lot below. "I threw myself into work after I left. Didn't date much. Didn't let myself get close to anyone. I told myself I was fine on my own." "Were you?" "I thought so. And then I woke up in this hospital,
and found out you'd given me a kidney, and now I don't know what I think about anything. Caleb understood that feeling. Do you hate me? Lila asked suddenly. For leaving? No. You should. Maybe. But I don't.
She turned back to him, her eyes searching his face. I hate that you did this. I hate that you put yourself at risk. But I'm also... She stopped, struggling with the words. I'm grateful. And terrified. And I don't know how to feel both things at once. You don't have to figure it out right now. When then? When you're ready. Lila looked like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. Instead, she reached out slowly, carefully, and took his hand. Her grip was weak, but it was there. Thank you, she whispered, for saving my life. Caleb squeezed her hand gently. You're welcome. They sat like that for a while, not saying anything, just existing in the same space. It wasn't forgiveness, and it wasn't closure, but it was something, a starting point maybe. Over the next 3 days, a routine developed. Caleb would get himself into the wheelchair in the mornings. He was getting better at it, needing less help from the nurses. And go see Lila. They'd talk. Small things at first, books they'd been reading, shows they'd watched. Safe topics that didn't require them to dive into the mess between them. But gradually, the conversations deepened. Lila told him about the accident in more detail. How she'd been driving home from a late meeting, exhausted and not paying enough attention. How the rain had been coming down hard, making the road slick. How she hadn't seen the other car until it was too late. I remember the impact, she said one afternoon. They were sitting by the window in her room, watching rain streak down the glass. The sound of metal crushing, glass shattering, and then this moment of absolute silence before the pain hit, like the world just stopped. I thought I was going to die, she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. In those seconds before I blacked out, I remember thinking, this is it. This is how it ends. And all I could think about was everything I hadn't done. Places I hadn't seen, things I hadn't said. Like what? She hesitated. Like telling you I was sorry. For how I left. For not being strong enough to stay. You don't owe me an apology. Yes, I do. I owed it to you 6 years ago, and I owe it to you now. She turned to look at him. I was scared, Caleb. Scared of what your life was becoming. Scared that I'd never be enough. That I'd always be second to Emma, to your responsibilities. And instead of talking to you about it, I just ran. I was scared too, he admitted, terrified. I had no idea how to be a father. Claire made it clear she wanted nothing to do with the baby, and there I was, 26 years old, about to be a single dad. And you tried so hard to be okay with it, but I could see it eating at you. Every day, a little more. I wanted to be okay with it. I really did. I know, but wanting something and being able to do it aren't always the same thing. Another day, Caleb told her about Emma's first word, how it had been dada, and how he'd called Rebecca crying because he was so overwhelmed and proud and terrified all at once. I recorded it on my phone, he said. I must have watched that video 100 times. Just this tiny person looking at me and saying, Dada, like I was the most important thing in the world. Lila's eyes were wet. You're a good dad, Caleb. I'm trying to be. No, you are. I can hear it in the way you talk about her, the way your whole face changes when you mention her name. He didn't know what to say to that. Do you think... Lila stopped, then started again. Do you think she'd ever want to meet me? Caleb's heart kicked. I don't know, maybe. She knows I had a friend who needed help. She doesn't know the details. Would you tell her, eventually? I don't know. That's a complicated conversation. Everything about this is complicated. Yeah. On the 4th day, Dr. Patel came to Caleb's room with news. You're healing well enough to be discharged tomorrow, she said. You'll need to take it easy for the next several weeks. No heavy lifting, no strenuous activity. And you'll have follow-up appointments here in Hartford to monitor your remaining kidney. What about Lila? She'll be here another week, maybe 2. She's doing great, but we want to monitor her closely. Make sure there are no rejection issues, that her other injuries continue to heal properly. After that, she'll need outpatient follow-up care, physical therapy for her ribs and collarbone. Will she be okay, long-term? Barring any complications, yes. You gave her a second chance, Caleb. What she does with it is up to her. That evening, he went to tell Lila. She was sitting up in a chair by the window, looking stronger than she had since the accident. There was actual color in her cheeks now, and her movements were less cautious. She took the news quietly, nodding. "That's good. You should get back to Emma." "Yeah." "Will you—" She stopped, looking uncertain. "Will you come back? To visit, I mean, for your follow-ups." "I have to. Doctor's orders." "That's not what I'm asking." He met her eyes. "Do you want me to?" "I don't know, maybe." She laughed, but it sounded shaky. "I don't know what I want right now. Everything's so confusing." "I get that." "Do you?" "Yeah, I do." They sat in silence for a minute. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "I'm going to need follow-up appointments," Lila said, "here in Hartford, to make sure the kidney's working properly, monitor for rejection, all that." "Okay. And you'll need them too. They'll want to monitor you, make sure your remaining kidney is handling the load, that you're healing right." "I know." "So we'll probably see each other, at the hospital, I mean." "Probably." Lila looked down at her hands. "That's going to be weird." "Yeah. But maybe not bad weird?" Caleb felt something shift in his chest. Hope, maybe, or just the possibility of it. "Maybe not. I'm not making any promises," Lila said quickly. "I'm not saying we're going to— I don't even know what I'm saying." "You don't have to say anything." "But I want to. I just don't have the words yet." "Then don't use words, just— let's take it one day at a time, see what happens." She nodded, relief crossing her face. "Okay, one day at a time." The next morning, Rebecca showed up with Emma. Caleb had texted her the night before, told her he was being discharged and needed a ride. He didn't expect her to bring his daughter, but there she was, bursting through the door with her hair in pigtails and her dinosaur backpack on, a drawing clutched in one hand. "Daddy!" She launched herself at him, and Caleb caught her carefully, mindful of his incision. She wrapped her arms around his neck and squeezed. "Easy, kiddo. I'm still a little sore." "Sorry." She pulled back, looking at him with wide eyes. "Are you better now?" "Getting there." "Can we go home?" "Yeah, we can go home." "I made you another picture. It's you being a superhero because Aunt Becca said you saved someone's life." Caleb's throat tightened. He looked at Rebecca, who shrugged. She asked questions. I gave her age-appropriate answers. Emma held up the drawing. It showed a stick figure with a cape, presumably him, and another stick figure lying in a bed with a heart over it. "It's perfect," Caleb said. "Thank you, sweetheart." Rebecca stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching them. When Emma finally let go and started exploring the hospital room, poking at buttons and asking questions about what everything was for, Rebecca came over. "You look terrible," she said. "Thanks. How's Lila?" "Alive. Recovering. Did you talk to her?" "Really talk?" "Yeah." "And?" Caleb glanced at Emma, who was currently trying to figure out how the bed controls worked. "And it's complicated." "Everything with you is complicated." "Fair point." Rebecca's expression softened. "Are you okay?" "Really?" "I will be." "That's not an answer." "It's the best one I've got." She studied him for a long moment, then reached out and squeezed his shoulder gently. "All right, let's get you home." Before they left, Caleb asked if they could stop by Lila's room. Rebecca raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. When they got there, Lila was awake, sitting up in bed with a book in her lap. She turned when she heard them, and her eyes went straight to Emma. "Hi," Caleb said. "We're heading out. I just wanted to say goodbye." Lila's gaze stayed on Emma, something complicated crossing her face. "Is this—" "Yeah, this is Emma." Emma, sensing she was being talked about, came forward and stuck out her hand very seriously. "Hi, I'm Emma. Are you my dad's friend?" Lila's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled and shook Emma's hand. "Hi, Emma. Yeah, I'm your dad's friend. My name's Lila." "My dad helped you, right? That's why he was in the hospital?" "That's right. Your dad's pretty amazing." Emma beamed. "I know. He makes the best pancakes, and he lets me stay up late on Fridays, and he reads me stories with funny voices." Lila laughed, and it sounded real. She looked at Caleb over Emma's head, and something passed between them. Not resolution exactly, but understanding. Acknowledgement that whatever this was between them, it was still there. Still alive.
Thank you, Lila said quietly, for everything.
Take care of yourself, Lila.
You too.
Emma tugged on his hand. Can we go now? I want to show you my room. Aunt Becca let me rearrange all my stuffed animals.
Yeah, kiddo, we can go.
As they left, Emma chattered the whole way to the elevator about her stuffed animals and the cookies they'd made and how she wanted to get a goldfish. Rebecca stayed quiet, but Caleb caught her looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read.
What? He asked once they were in the car. Nothing, just that was harder than I expected.
Yeah.
You still love her? It wasn't a question. Caleb looked out the window at the hospital disappearing behind them. I don't know what I feel. Liar. He didn't argue. The drive back to Boston felt long. Emma fell asleep in the back seat halfway through, her head lolling against the window, the drawing she'd made for him clutched in one hand. Rebecca drove, and for most of the trip they didn't talk. Finally, she said, "What are you going to do?" "About what?"
Don't play dumb. About Lila.
I don't know.
That's not good enough. It's all I've got right now, Becca. She glanced at him. You gave her a kidney. That's not something you just walk away from.
I know.
So what? You're just going to go back to your life and pretend none of this happened?
I don't know what else to do.
Rebecca was quiet for a long time. Then she said, maybe you don't have to figure it all out right now. Maybe you just take it one day at a time and see what happens.
That's very zen of you.
I have my moments. When they got back to the apartment, Emma woke up and insisted on helping him inside, even though he clearly didn't need help. She carried his bag, or tried to, it was almost as big as she was, and held the door open for him like he was fragile.
Welcome home, Daddy.
Home.
There was that word again.
Caleb looked around at his apartment. The same furniture, the same pictures on the walls. Emma's drawings stuck to the fridge with alphabet magnets, the stack of library books on the coffee table. Everything exactly as he'd left it, except he wasn't the same. Something had shifted. Something he couldn't name yet, but he felt it settling into his bones, changing the shape of everything he thought he knew. That night, after Emma was in bed and Rebecca had gone home with promises to check on him tomorrow, Caleb sat on the couch with his phone in his hand. He stared at the screen for a long time before finally typing out a message. Made it home. Emma's asleep. How are you feeling? He hit send before he could second-guess himself. 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Tired. But okay. Glad you're home safe. Me too. Get some rest. You too, Caleb. And thank you for everything. He set the phone down and leaned back against the couch cushions, closing his eyes. This wasn't over. Whatever this was between them, it was just beginning, and for the first time in 6 years, he wasn't sure if that terrified him or gave him hope. Maybe both. The first week back home was harder than Caleb expected. Not physically, though his incision hurt like hell whenever he moved wrong, but mentally. Everything felt off balance. He'd go to lift Emma and remember he couldn't. He'd start to reach for something on a high shelf and his body would remind him, sharp and immediate, that he was supposed to be taking it easy. Emma noticed. She was too perceptive not to.
Daddy, why do you keep making that face? She asked on the 3rd day, watching him wince as he bent down to pick up one of her toys.
What face?
The Ella face. I'm still healing, kiddo. Takes time.
How much time?
A few more weeks. She frowned, clearly dissatisfied with that answer. That's a long time. I know, but I'll be okay.
She didn't look convinced, but she nodded and went back to her coloring book. Caleb sat down on the couch, moving carefully, and watched her work. She was drawing a house with a family standing in front of it, stick figures with big smiles and wild hair. Who's that? He asked, pointing to one of the figures. That's you, and that's me, and that's Aunt Becca. What about that one? He pointed to a 4th figure she'd just added. Emma hesitated. That's your friend, the one you helped. Caleb's chest tightened. Yeah? She's part of our family now, right? Because you gave her something important. He didn't know how to answer that. It's complicated, Em. Why? Because grown-up stuff is always complicated. She rolled her eyes in a way that was far too adult for a 7-year-old. That's what Aunt Becca said, too.
Well, Aunt Becca's smart. I'm smart too. The smartest. That seemed to satisfy her. She went back to her drawing, adding a sun and clouds and a rainbow that took up half the page. Caleb watched her, his mind drifting back to Hartford, to Lila, to the conversation they'd had before he left. One day at a time, she'd said. He wondered what that actually meant. His phone buzzed, a text from Rebecca. How are you holding up? Alive. Emma's asking questions. About? Everything. She's your kid. Of course she is. Want me to come over? Not tonight. But thanks. Call if you need anything. He set the phone down and leaned his head back against the couch. The apartment felt too quiet, even with Emma humming to herself while she colored, like there was something missing that he couldn't quite name. The next morning, Caleb had his first follow-up appointment. Rebecca picked him up. He wasn't cleared to drive yet, and Emma stayed with a neighbor who had a daughter her age. The drive to Hartford felt longer than it had the first time, probably because he knew what he was walking into, or who. The hospital looked the same. Sterile hallways, fluorescent lights, the smell of disinfectant everywhere. Dr. Patel met him in the transplant clinic, her expression warm but professional. How are you feeling? She asked, leading him into an exam room. Sore, tired, but okay. That's normal. Let's take a look. She examined his incision, checked his vitals, ordered blood work. The whole process took about an hour. When she finished, she sat down across from him with his chart. Everything looks good, she said. Your kidney's adapting well, no signs of complications. You'll need to come back in 2 weeks for another check, and then monthly after that for the next 6 months. And Lila? Dr. Patel's expression shifted slightly. She's doing well. We discharged her yesterday, actually. Caleb's heart kicked. She's out? Yes, she'll be staying with a friend here in Hartford while she continues outpatient care. Physical therapy, regular check-ins, the usual post-transplant monitoring. Is she... He stopped, not sure what he was asking. She's in the building right now, actually. Physical therapy session, 4th floor. Caleb stood before he could talk himself out of it. Can I see her? Dr. Patel smiled. I thought you might ask that. The physical therapy wing was bright and open, with large windows overlooking the parking lot. Caleb found Lila in one of the rooms, working with a therapist on range of motion exercises for her shoulder. She was wearing gym clothes, black leggings, and a gray t-shirt, and her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She looked tired but stronger than she had in the hospital. She saw him through the glass and her expression shifted. Surprise, then something he couldn't quite read. The therapist said something to her and Lila nodded. A moment later, she was walking out into the hallway, moving slowly but steadily. Hey, she said. Hey, I didn't know you were out. Yeah, as of yesterday. They said I was healing fast enough to continue treatment outpatient. That's good? How are you? Okay, just had my follow-up. Dr. Patel says everything looks good. That's great. An awkward pause. Do you want to get coffee or something? There's a cafe downstairs. Yeah, sure. They took the elevator down in silence. The cafe was small and generic, the kind that exists in every hospital, overpriced coffee and stale pastries. They both got coffee and found a table by the window. Lila wrapped her hands around her cup like she was trying to warm them. This is weird, right? Very. I keep trying to figure out what to say to you, and nothing feels right. You don't have to say anything, but I do. You gave me a kidney, Caleb. That's not something I can just brush past. I'm not asking you to. She looked down at her coffee. I've been thinking a lot. About us. About what happened. About why you really did this. And I think you did it because you're a good person who couldn't live with yourself if you didn't. But I also think... She stopped, struggling with the words. I think part of you still cares about me. In some way. And I don't know what to do with that. Caleb didn't answer right away. He watched the steam rise from his coffee, the way it curled and dissipated in the air. You're right, he said finally. I do still care about you. I tried not to. I spent 6 years trying not to. But when Dr. Patel called and told me you were dying, all of that went out the window. That doesn't mean we can just pick up where we left off. I know that. Do you? Because this feels dangerous, Caleb. Like we're standing at the edge of something we shouldn't go near. Maybe we are, but we're already here. We can either pretend we're not, or we can be honest about it.
Lila looked at him, her eyes searching. What do you want from me? I don't know. I'm not asking for anything. I'm trying to figure this out the same as you. I'm not ready for a relationship. I'm barely ready to be alive. I'm not asking for a relationship. Then what are you asking for? I don't know. Maybe just let's not pretend we don't know each other. Let's not act like strangers when we see each other at these appointments. Let's just see what happens. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Okay, we can do that. Okay. They finished their coffee in a silence that was less awkward than before. When they stood to leave, Lila hesitated. Can I ask you something? Yeah. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if things had been different, if I hadn't left? All the time. Me too. She looked away. I should get back to PT, but I'll see you at the next appointment? Yeah, 2 weeks. 2 weeks. She walked away and Caleb stood there watching her go, feeling like he'd just made a promise he didn't entirely understand. Rebecca was waiting in the car, scrolling through her phone. When Caleb climbed in, she looked up. How'd it go? Fine. Everything's healing well. That's not what I meant. I know. She started the car but didn't pull out of the parking lot. Did you see her? Yeah. And we had coffee. We talked. It was weird and awkward, and I don't know what we're doing. Rebecca sighed. You're playing with fire, you know that? I'm not playing with anything. We're just talking. People don't just talk when there's this much history, especially not when one of them literally gave the other an organ. What do you want me to do, Becca? Pretend she doesn't exist? I want you to be careful. You've got a daughter who depends on you. You can't afford to get your heart broken again. I'm not going to. You don't know that. She was right, and he hated it. The next 2 weeks fell into a strange rhythm. Caleb focused on healing, on getting back to some version of normal. He started working from home, answering emails, reviewing project plans, staying connected to the construction firm without physically being on site. Emma went back to school, and every afternoon when she came home, she'd tell him about her day in exhaustive detail. And then Marcus said his mom lets him stay up until 9, which isn't fair because you make me go to bed at 8:30, and I told him that's because my dad cares about my sleep schedule, which is what you always say. That's exactly right. But can I stay up until 9? Nice try. She groaned dramatically and flopped onto the couch beside him. You're so mean. The meanest. She grinned and snuggled against his side, careful not to bump his incision. They'd had that conversation enough times that she knew where it was and how to avoid it. Daddy? Yeah? When are you going back to the hospital? Next week. Why? Can I come with you? Caleb looked down at her. Why do you want to come? I want to meet your friend, the one you helped. His chest tightened. I don't know if that's a good idea, Em. Why not? Because it's complicated. You always say that. Because it's always true. She pulled back, looking up at him with those big brown eyes that could convince him to do just about anything. Please, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for what? For letting my dad help her, for being okay now. Caleb felt something crack open in his chest. Let me think about it, okay? Okay. That night, after Emma was asleep, he texted Lila. Emma wants to meet you. Really meet you, not just a quick hello in a hospital room. The reply came a few minutes later. What did you tell her? About us? Nothing. Just that you're a friend who needed help, and she wants to meet me. She wants to thank you for letting me help you. Her words. That's sweet and terrifying. You don't have to. I can tell her no. The 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before her response came through. No, I'd like to meet her. Properly. You sure? No. But let's do it anyway. They made plans to meet at a park in Hartford the following Saturday. Neutral ground, Lila had said. Somewhere that wasn't a hospital or tied to all the heavy stuff between them. The drive there felt endless. Emma chattered the entire time, asking questions about what Lila was like, what her favorite color was, if she liked dinosaurs. I don't know, kiddo. You can ask her yourself. What if she doesn't like me? She's going to love you. How do you know? Because everyone loves you. Emma seemed satisfied with that, but Caleb's stomach was in knots. This felt like crossing a line, bringing Emma into this mess. But it was too late to back out now. Lila was waiting on a bench near the playground when they arrived. She stood when she saw them, and Caleb could see the nervousness on her face, the way she smoothed her hands down her jeans like she didn't know what to do with them. Emma didn't hesitate. She walked right up to Lila and stuck out her hand. "Hi, I'm Emma. It's nice to meet you for real this time." Lila smiled, and it looked genuine. "Hi, Emma. I'm Lila. It's nice to meet you too. Do you like dinosaurs?" "I do, actually. I used to love them when I was your age." "What's your favorite?" "Probably the Triceratops." "What about you?" "Velociraptor. They're fast and smart and they hunt in packs." "That's a good choice." Emma beamed, and just like that, the ice was broken. They walked to the playground, and Emma ran off to the swings, leaving Caleb and Lila standing awkwardly by a bench. "She's amazing," Lila said quietly. "Yeah, she is." "She looks like you. Same eyes. Same stubborn streak, too." Lila laughed. "I bet." They sat down on the bench, watching Emma swing higher and higher, her hair flying behind her. For a while, neither of them said anything. Then Lila said, "This is surreal." "Yeah, 6 years ago, I couldn't handle the idea of your daughter, and now here I am sitting in a park watching her play, and it's not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Pain, maybe, resentment, but I just feel—" She stopped, searching for the word. "Sad. For what I missed. For what we could have been if I'd been braver." "You weren't ready. That's not the same as not being brave." "Maybe." Emma ran back over, breathless and grinning. "Can Lila push me on the swings?" Caleb looked at Lila, who nodded. "Sure, I can do that." They walked over to the swings together, and Caleb watched as Lila pushed Emma gently, carefully, laughing when Emma demanded she go higher. There was something surreal about it, seeing them together. Two parts of his life that had existed in completely separate spaces, now overlapping in a way he'd never imagined. After the park, they got ice cream. Emma insisted, and neither Caleb nor Lila had the heart to say no. They sat at a picnic table outside the shop, Emma working her way through a cone of mint chocolate chip while telling Lila about her favorite books, and her teacher and the boy in her class who ate glue. "He just eats it?" Lila asked, trying not to laugh. "All the time, even when Mrs. Patterson tells him not to." "That's dedication," Emma giggled. "That's what my dad said." Lila glanced at Caleb, something soft in her expression. "Your dad's pretty funny." "He's the best," Emma said matter-of-factly. "He makes really good pancakes, and he lets me help with construction stuff even though I'm not very good at it yet." "I bet you're better than you think." "Maybe." Emma took a bite of her ice cream, then looked at Lila seriously. "Are you all better now? From the accident?" "I'm getting there. It takes time." "That's what my dad says too. About his surgery? We're both healing." Emma nodded, satisfied. "Good. I'm glad my dad helped you. He's good at helping people." Lila's eyes welled up, but she blinked the tears away. "He really is." On the drive home, Emma fell asleep in the back seat almost immediately, exhausted from the afternoon. Caleb's phone buzzed with a text from Lila. "Thank you for today. Emma's incredible. She liked you too. This is still terrifying." "I know. But maybe good terrifying. Maybe." Over the next few weeks, something shifted. It wasn't dramatic or obvious, just a gradual easing of the tension that had been there since the hospital. Lila started texting more often, not just about appointments or logistics, but small things. A funny meme. A picture of a sunset. A question about whether he remembered a specific restaurant they used to go to. And Caleb found himself responding, found himself looking forward to those messages in a way that probably wasn't smart, but felt inevitable. They started meeting for coffee after their appointments. Sometimes Emma came, sometimes she didn't. When she did, she'd chatter away, filling any awkward silences with stories about school or questions about Lila's work. When she didn't, the conversations between Caleb and Lila went deeper. Lila told him about her physical therapy, about how frustrating it was to be so weak when she'd always been active. "I used to run marathons," she said one afternoon. "Now I can barely walk up a flight of stairs without getting winded." "It'll come back." "You don't know that." "I do. You're stubborn as hell. You'll get there." She smiled. "You remember that about me?" I remember a lot about you. Another day, Caleb told her about the first time Emma got sick. Really sick. Not just a cold. She'd been 2, running a fever so high he'd driven her to the ER in the middle of the night, terrified out of his mind. They said it was just a virus, that she'd be fine. But sitting there in that waiting room, not knowing, I've never been that scared in my life. You were alone? Yeah, Rebecca came as soon as I called her, but those first few hours it was just me and Emma. Leela reached across the table and squeezed his hand. You're a good dad, Caleb. I mean it. I'm trying. No, you are. One Saturday, about 6 weeks after the surgery, Lila asked if she could take Emma to a museum. There was a dinosaur exhibit she thought Emma would love, and she wanted to do something nice for her. Caleb hesitated. Not because he didn't trust Lila, but because it felt like another line being crossed. Another step towards something he wasn't sure they were ready for. But Emma was bouncing with excitement when he told her, and he couldn't bring himself to say no. Just for a few hours, Lila promised. I'll have her back by dinner. Okay. He watched them drive away, Emma waving from the back seat, and felt a strange mix of emotions he couldn't quite name. Relief that Emma was happy. Fear that he was letting things move too fast. Hope that maybe, just maybe, this could work. Rebecca called an hour later. Did you really just let Lila take Emma to a museum? How did you know about that? Emma texted me, with about 15 exclamation points. She's 7. She shouldn't even have a phone. It's an old one I gave her for emergencies. Stop deflecting. What are you doing, Caleb? I don't know. That's not good enough. You're letting her into Emma's life. You're letting her get close. What happens when this blows up? It's not going to blow up. You don't know that. You're playing house with someone who walked away once already. What makes you think she won't do it again? She's different now. We both are. People don't change that much. Maybe not, but circumstances do. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. I just don't want to see you get hurt. Or Emma. I know, but I have to try, Becca. I can't spend the rest of my life wondering what if. Then be careful, please. I will. When Lila brought Emma back that evening, his daughter was practically vibrating with excitement. Daddy, we saw a T-Rex skeleton, and it was huge, and Lila knew all these facts about dinosaurs, and we got matching keychains, and she said, maybe we can go to the aquarium next time. Next time, Emma nodded enthusiastically. She said, if it's okay with you. Caleb looked at Lila, who shrugged. If it's okay with you, we'll see. After Emma went to brush her teeth, Lila lingered by the door. She had a great time, Caleb said. So did I. She's really special, Caleb. I know. I mean it. Spending time with her today, seeing how smart and kind and funny she is, it made me realize how much I missed out on, how much I gave up when I left. You didn't give her up. You were never part of that. But I could have been. If I'd been braver. If I'd stayed. Caleb didn't know what to say to that. Lila took a breath. I'm not saying I regret leaving. I'm not even saying I could have handled it back then, but I regret how I left. I regret not giving us a chance to figure it out together. We were kids, Lila. We were both just trying to survive. Maybe, but we're not kids anymore. She left before he could respond, and Caleb stood there in the doorway, her words echoing in his head. That night, after Emma was asleep, he sat on the couch, with a beer he wasn't supposed to be drinking, doctor's orders, and thought about what Lila had said. We're not kids anymore. She was right, they weren't. They'd both been through hell and come out the other side changed. But the question was whether they'd changed enough. Whether the things that broke them the first time were still there, waiting to break them again. His phone buzzed. A text from Lila. I shouldn't have said that. About regrets. I'm sorry. Don't be. You were being honest. Honest is scary. Yeah. But it's better than the alternative. Is it? I think so. A long pause, then, I'm falling for you again. Or maybe I never stopped. And it terrifies me. Caleb stared at the message, his heart pounding. He typed and deleted 3 different responses before finally settling on the truth. Me too. Her reply came almost immediately. What do we do about it? I don't know. But we'll figure it out. Together? Yeah, together. He set the phone down and leaned back, closing his eyes.
This was happening, really happening, and he had no idea if it was the best decision he'd ever made or the worst. But for the first time in 6 years, he was willing to find out. The shift happened slowly at first, then all at once, like snow accumulating on a roof until the weight of it becomes undeniable. Caleb and Lila started spending more time together, not just at appointments or coffee shops, but real time. Dinners, walks, Saturday afternoons when Emma had play dates and Caleb found himself driving to Hartford instead of catching up on work. Rebecca noticed. Of course she did. "You're seeing her," she said one evening when she stopped by to drop off groceries. Emma was in her room doing homework, and Caleb was attempting to make dinner with one hand while his other side still protested any real movement. "We're spending time together. That's not the same thing." "Bullshit. You're texting her constantly. You light up every time her name shows up on your phone. You drove to Hartford 3 times last week." "Twice. That's not better." Rebecca set the grocery bags on the counter harder than necessary. "What are you doing, Caleb?" "I don't know, figuring it out as I go." "That's not a plan. That's a disaster waiting to happen." He stopped chopping vegetables, badly, because he'd never been great at cooking, and turned to face her. "What do you want me to say, that I'm falling for her again? Fine. I am. That I think about her all the time. I do. That this scares the hell out of me because I have no idea if it's going to work? It does." Rebecca's expression softened slightly. "I just don't want you to get hurt." "I know, but I can't live my whole life afraid of getting hurt. At some point, I have to take the risk." "What about Emma?" "What about her?" "She's getting attached to Lila. What happens when this falls apart and Lila disappears again?" "It's not going to fall apart. You can't promise that." She was right, and they both knew it. That weekend, Lila came to Boston. It was the first time she'd been to Caleb's apartment since before Emma was born, and walking through the door felt strange for both of them. The space was different now, filled with Emma's drawings and toys and the general chaos of a 7-year-old's life. Emma was thrilled. She gave Lila a full tour, showing her every corner of the apartment with the kind of enthusiasm only a child could muster. "And this is my room. I have 43 stuffed animals. Well, 42 because Mr. Whiskers lost an eye and Dad said he'd fix it, but he hasn't yet." Caleb raised his hands defensively. "I said I'd try. I didn't promise anything." Emma rolled her eyes. "And this is my favorite one. Her name is Stella, and she's a dinosaur, even though she looks like a dragon, because Dad doesn't know the difference." "I know the difference," Caleb protested. Lila was laughing, really laughing, and it was the best sound Caleb had heard in weeks. After the tour, Emma insisted they watch a movie, some animated thing about talking animals that Caleb had seen approximately 800 times. They sat on the couch together, Emma between them, and Caleb tried not to think about how domestic this all felt. How right. Halfway through the movie, Emma fell asleep, her head on Lila's shoulder. Lila looked down at her, then at Caleb, and something passed between them. "I should probably put her to bed," Caleb whispered. "Let me help." Together, they carried Emma to her room, Caleb doing most of the lifting while Lila guided, and tucked her in. Emma stirred slightly but didn't wake. Caleb kissed her forehead, and when he turned around, Lila was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. They went back to the living room, and suddenly the apartment felt too small, too quiet without Emma's chatter filling the space. "She's really something," Lila said, settling back on the couch. "Yeah, she is." "You've done an amazing job with her, Caleb. I mean it. She's kind and curious and confident. That's all you." "I had help, Rebecca mostly. And Emma's she's naturally good. I can't take all the credit. Don't sell yourself short." Lila tucked her legs under her, turning to face him. "I've been thinking a lot lately. About us. About what this is." Caleb's heart started beating faster. "Yeah? I don't want to rush anything. I know we're both still figuring this out. But I also don't want to pretend this isn't happening, that we're just friends or whatever we've been telling ourselves." "What do you want it to be?" "I don't know. Something real, something honest. But I'm scared, Caleb. I'm terrified of messing this up again." "So am I." "But you're still here." "So are you." She reached out and took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "I left you once. I don't want to be that person again. But I need you to know that I'm still figuring out how to be brave enough to stay. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm just asking you to try. I can do that." They sat like that for a long time, hands intertwined, not saying anything.
Outside, the city hummed with its usual noise, cars and sirens and the distant sound of someone's music playing too loud. But inside, everything felt still, like the world had narrowed down to just this moment, just the two of them. Eventually, Lila stood. I should go. It's late. You could stay. I have a guest room if you don't want to drive back tonight. She hesitated, and for a second he thought she might say no. But then she smiled. Okay, yeah, I'll stay. Caleb set her up in the spare room, which was really just a catch-all for things he didn't know where else to put. But there was a bed and clean sheets, and that was good enough. When he said goodnight, she caught his hand. Thank you, she said, for giving me another chance, even though I don't deserve it. You deserve it. I'm going to try really hard not to screw this up. Me too. The next morning, Emma woke up delighted to find Lila still there. She insisted on making breakfast, which meant Caleb supervised while Emma cracked eggs, chas, and Lila attempted to work the toaster. It was chaotic and messy and perfect. After breakfast, they went to the park, the same one where Caleb used to take Emma when she was a toddler, back when everything felt overwhelming and impossible. Now, watching Emma run ahead while Lila walked beside him, it felt different, less lonely. Can I ask you something? Lila said. Yeah. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I'd stayed? If I'd been strong enough to handle everything back then? Sometimes. What do you think would have happened? Caleb was quiet for a moment, watching Emma climb on the monkey bars. Honestly, I think we would have tried to make it work, and maybe we would have. Or maybe the weight of it all would have crushed us anyway. I don't know. Do you wish I'd stayed? I wish a lot of things had been different. But I can't regret what happened, because it gave me Emma, and she's everything. I know, I can see that. But I also wish you hadn't had to hurt the way you did. I wish I'd been able to give you what you needed. Lila looked at him. You gave me everything you could. I was the one who couldn't accept it. We were both doing our best. And now? Now we get to try again. Older, smarter, hopefully less likely to screw it up. She laughed. Hopefully. Over the next few weeks, they settled into something that felt almost like a relationship. Lila started coming to Boston more often. Sometimes she'd stay the weekend, sometimes just a night. Emma adored her, and Caleb found himself looking forward to those moments when the three of them felt like a unit. But it wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. One night, about 3 months after the surgery, they had their first real fight. Lila had mentioned maybe looking for a job in Boston, something closer so she wouldn't have to make the drive as often. Caleb had immediately tensed. You don't have to do that, he'd said. I know I don't have to. I want to. But your life is in Hartford. Your job, your apartment, everything. My job is fine, but it's not my whole life. And my apartment is just an apartment. Lila, you can't uproot everything for me. For us. What if this doesn't work out? She'd gone very still. Is that what you think? That this isn't going to work out? I didn't say that. But you're thinking it. You're already planning for when I leave again. That's not fair. Isn't it? You're holding back, Caleb. I can feel it. Every time we get close, you pull away a little. Like you're waiting for me to disappoint you. I'm not. Yes, you are. And I get it. I do. I left you once, and you're scared I'll do it again. But I can't spend the rest of my life proving myself to you. At some point, you have to decide to trust me. Caleb had felt something crack open in his chest. I'm trying. Try harder. She'd left that night, and Caleb had spent hours staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation in his head. She was right. He was holding back, protecting himself. But how was he supposed to let go of that fear when it had kept him safe for so long? The next morning, he called her. I'm sorry, he said when she answered. You're right, I am scared, but not because I don't trust you, because I do, and that terrifies me. Why? Because the last time I trusted someone this much, it ended with me alone, raising a baby I had no idea how to care for, and I survived that, but I don't know if I could survive it again. Lila was quiet for a long moment. I can't promise you I'll never hurt you. I can't promise this will be easy, but I can promise I'm not going anywhere. Not this time. How do you know? Because I gave up on us once, and I've spent 6 years regretting it. I'm not making that mistake again. Okay. Okay? Yeah, okay, I'll try to trust that. That's all I'm asking. Things got better after that. Not perfect, but better. Caleb started letting his guard down, letting himself believe that maybe this could actually work. Lila started looking at jobs in Boston, going on interviews, making plans that included him and Emma in a real, tangible way. Emma, for her part, seemed thrilled. One night at dinner, she looked up from her spaghetti and said, "Is Lila going to live with us?" Caleb nearly choked on his water. What? She's here all the time anyway, and she's really good at helping with homework, way better than you. Thanks, kiddo. I'm just saying it would make sense. Lila was trying not to laugh. We haven't really talked about that, Em. But you should, because it would be cool if you did. Later, after Emma was in bed, Caleb and Lila sat on the couch, both of them still processing the conversation. She's not wrong, Lila said. I'm here all the time. That doesn't mean you have to move in. I know. But what if I wanted to? Caleb turned to look at her. Do you? Maybe. Eventually, if you wanted that too. I think I might. Yeah? Yeah, but let's not rush it. Let's just keep doing what we're doing. See where it goes. One day at a time. Exactly. 4 months after the surgery, Caleb got a call from Dr. Patel. Both he and Lila were due for their next round of tests, and she wanted to see them together this time. When they arrived at the hospital, she had them sit down in her office. Her expression was serious, and Caleb felt his stomach drop. Is everything okay? He asked. Everything's fine. Better than fine, actually. Both of you are healing beautifully. Caleb, your remaining kidney is functioning at full capacity. Lila, there are no signs of rejection. You're both doing exactly what we hoped you'd do. Caleb felt the tension drain out of him. So we're good? You're very good. In fact, I'd say you're both cleared to return to normal activities. Caleb, you can go back to work full time. Lila, you can start ramping up your exercise again. Obviously, take it slow, but you're past the critical period. That's great, Lila said, reaching over to squeeze Caleb's hand. Dr. Patel smiled. There's one more thing. I don't usually do this, but I wanted to tell you both. What you've done here is extraordinary. Not just the transplant, though that was successful beyond our expectations, but the way you've handled everything after, the way you've shown up for each other. That's rare. Caleb didn't know what to say to that. Thank you, Lila said quietly, for everything. After they left the hospital, they sat in Caleb's car in the parking lot, neither of them quite ready to leave. We did it, Lila said. We actually did it. Yeah, we did. So what now? Caleb turned to look at her. Now we live. We figure out what normal looks like for us. We keep trying. That sounds good. He reached over and took her hand. I love you. I know we haven't said that yet, and maybe it's too soon, but I do. I love you. Lila's eyes filled with tears. I love you too. I never stopped. They sat there in the parking lot holding hands, and for the first time in 6 years, Caleb let himself believe that this was real, that they were going to make it. A few weeks later, Lila got a job offer in Boston, a good one, working with a nonprofit that focused on environmental justice in urban communities. She accepted it without hesitation. I'm moving to Boston, she told Caleb over dinner. Emma was at a sleepover, so it was just the two of them. When? End of the month. I've already found an apartment in Cambridge. It's small, but it's close to the office, and close to you guys. Caleb felt something settle in his chest. That's great. Is it? You don't seem that excited. I am. I'm just... He stopped, trying to find the words. I'm happy. I'm really happy. It just feels almost too good to be true. Lila reached across the table and took his hand. It's real, Caleb. We're real. And I'm not going anywhere. Promise? Promise. The move happened quickly. Rebecca helped, begrudgingly at first, but she warmed up when she saw how serious Lila was about making this work. Emma was over the moon, insisting on helping pack boxes, even though she mostly just got in the way. On moving day, Caleb showed up at Lila's new apartment with Emma and a box of cleaning supplies. The place was small but bright, with big windows that let in lots of light. Emma immediately claimed a corner for the stuffed animal she'd brought as a housewarming gift. It's perfect, Lila said, looking around at the mostly empty space. A fresh start. You sure about this? Caleb asked. Leaving Hartford, starting over? I've never been more sure of anything. They spent the afternoon unpacking, Emma helping by narrating everything they did and asking approximately 1 million questions. By the time the sun started to set, the apartment was starting to look like a home. That night, after they dropped Emma back at Caleb's place, he and Lila stood on her new balcony, looking out at the city. Boston spread out before them, lights starting to flicker on as darkness settled in. I used to stand on our balcony in Alston, Lila said quietly, the one we had together, and I'd think about the future, about what we were going to do, where we were going to go. I remember. I never imagined this. 6 years later, standing on a different balcony, trying again. Is it weird? No, it feels right. She turned to look at him. We're not the same people we were back then. No, we're not. But I think we're better, stronger, more ready for this. Caleb pulled her closer, wrapping his arms around her. I think so too. They stood like that for a long time, just holding each other, watching the city lights come on one by one. The next few months were good, really good. Lila settled into her new job and her new apartment. She and Emma developed their own relationship, separate from Caleb. Movie nights when he worked late, weekend trips to museums and bookstores. Rebecca even started to come around, admitting that maybe she'd been too hard on Lila. She's really here for you this time, Rebecca said one afternoon when they were watching Emma's soccer game. Lila was on the field with the other parents, cheering louder than anyone. I know. And you're happy? Yeah, I really am. Rebecca nodded. Good, that's good. But life wasn't perfect, because life never was. There were hard days. Days when Lila's physical therapy was brutal and she came home exhausted and frustrated. Days when Caleb's incision ached and reminded him of what he'd given up. Days when Emma missed having her dad's full attention and acted out in small 7-year-old ways. One particularly rough evening, Emma had a meltdown about bedtime. She didn't want to go to sleep, didn't want to brush her teeth, didn't want to do anything Caleb asked her to do. I don't want Lila here, she'd screamed when Lila tried to help. I want it to be just me and Dad like it used to be. Caleb had sent Lila home, then spent 2 hours sitting with Emma while she cried. When she finally calmed down enough to talk, she'd whispered, What if she leaves like Mom did? Caleb's heart had broken. Lila's not going anywhere, sweetheart. How do you know? Because she loves us. And people who love each other don't just leave. But Mom did. That was different. Your mom, she wasn't ready to be a mom. It wasn't about you. It was never about you. Does Lila want to be a mom? The question caught him off guard. I don't know. We haven't really talked about it. You should ask her. The next day, Caleb told Lila about the conversation. They were sitting in her apartment, Emma safely at school. She asked if you want to be a mom, he said. Lila was quiet for a long moment. What did you say? That I didn't know, that we hadn't talked about it. And now? Now I'm asking, not because I'm pressuring you, but because Emma needs to know where she stands, what this means. Lila took a deep breath. I don't know if I want kids of my own. I really don't. But Emma's different. She's already here, and she's already amazing, and I already love her. So if you're asking if I want to be part of her life, really part of it, then yes, I do. What does that look like? I don't know. I'm not trying to replace her mom. I'm not trying to be something I'm not. But I want to be there for her, for both of you, however that looks. Caleb pulled her close. That's enough. That's more than enough. 6 months after the surgery, Caleb got the all clear from Dr. Patel. His kidney function was perfect. He was healthy. He could live a completely normal life with no restrictions. You did good, Caleb, she said. Really good. Thanks for everything. Thank me by living well, by making the most of this second chance you gave yourself. That night, Caleb took Lila and Emma out to dinner to celebrate. They went to a nice restaurant, the kind with cloth napkins and waiters who introduced themselves, and Emma insisted on ordering the fanciest thing on the kids' menu. We're celebrating, she announced to the waiter. My dad's kidney is perfect. The waiter looked confused but smiled politely. That's great. After dinner, they walked along the river, Emma running ahead while Caleb and Lila followed hand in hand.
I've been thinking, Lila said. About? About us. About what this is. And I think I'm ready. Ready for what? She stopped walking and turned to face him. Ready to stop being scared. Ready to commit to this, really commit. Ready to see where this goes without holding back. Caleb felt his heart swell. Yeah? Yeah. I love you, Caleb. I love Emma. And I want to build a life with you guys, whatever that looks like.
He kissed her, right there on the river walk, with Emma giggling in the background and strangers walking past. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't some movie moment with swelling music and perfect lighting, but it was real. And that was better. A year after the surgery, Caleb woke up on a Saturday morning to the sound of Emma and Lila laughing in the kitchen. He lay there for a moment, listening to their voices blend together, Emma's high and excited, Lila's lower and warm, and tried to remember the last time he'd felt this content. He couldn't. When he walked into the kitchen, Emma was standing on a stool at the counter, flour everywhere, while Lila supervised what appeared to be an attempt at pancakes. "Daddy!" Emma turned, her face dusted with white powder. "We're making breakfast, but Lila says I have to measure the flour, and I think that's boring." "Measuring is important," Lila said, trying to keep a straight face. "Otherwise, we end up with pancake bricks." "One time," Caleb said, crossing to the coffee maker. "I made pancake bricks one time, and you're never going to let me forget it." "Never," Lila confirmed, grinning. He poured himself coffee and watched them work, Emma chattering away about a book she was reading while Lila gently corrected her measuring technique. This had become their routine over the past few months. Lila stayed over most weekends now, and some weeknights too. Her apartment in Cambridge still existed, but she spent more time here than there. They hadn't talked about making it official, about her actually moving in, but it was becoming increasingly obvious that they were heading in that direction. After breakfast, the pancakes turned out perfectly, much to Emma's delight. Lila pulled Caleb aside while Emma was getting dressed for soccer practice. "I need to talk to you about something," she said. Caleb's stomach tightened. Those words never led anywhere good. "Okay. My lease is up next month." "Okay," he said again, not sure where this was going. "And I've been thinking, I'm basically living here anyway. I'm spending maybe 2 nights a week at my place, and that's just because I don't want to overstep. But it feels silly to keep paying rent on an apartment I barely use." "What are you saying?" Lila took a breath. "I'm saying I want to move in, officially, if you want that too." Caleb felt relief wash over him. "I thought you were about to tell me something bad." "Why would I tell you something bad?" "Because you started with, 'I need to talk to you about something,' and that's never good." She laughed. "Fair point, but no, nothing bad. Just, I want to live with you and Emma, if that's okay." "More than okay." "Yeah? Yeah. Move in, please." She kissed him, and Emma chose that exact moment to run back into the room. "Gross," she announced. "Are we going to soccer, or are you guys going to be mushy all day?" "Both," Caleb said, reaching out to ruffle her hair. "We can multitask." Emma rolled her eyes, but she was grinning. Lila moved in 3 weeks later. It was chaos, boxes everywhere, Emma helping by unpacking things into completely wrong places, Rebecca showing up with pizza and unsolicited advice about furniture arrangement. But by the end of the weekend, Lila's things were integrated into the apartment in a way that felt natural. Her books on the shelves next to his, her coffee mug in the cabinet, her jacket hanging by the door. That night, after Emma was asleep and the boxes were mostly unpacked, Caleb and Lila collapsed on the couch. "We did it," Lila said. "We did. This is real now, like really real." Having second thoughts? "No, just taking it in. A year ago I was in a hospital bed thinking I might die, and now I'm here, living with you, part of Emma's life. It's a lot." Caleb pulled her closer. "Good lot or bad lot?" "The best lot." The transition wasn't seamless. Living together meant seeing all the parts of each other they'd kept hidden when they had separate spaces. Lila learned that Caleb was terrible about leaving cabinet doors open and could not, for the life of him, remember to put the toilet seat down. Caleb learned that Lila was neurotic about the dishwasher. Everything had to be loaded a specific way. And she stayed up too late reading and then was grumpy in the mornings. They had fights. Small ones, mostly. About whose turn it was to take out the trash. About whether they needed to buy organic vegetables or if regular ones were fine. About the fact that Lila wanted to get a cat, and Caleb thought they had enough chaos already. But they also had good moments. Great ones. Movie nights where all three of them piled on the couch. Sunday mornings when they'd make a big breakfast and spend hours just talking. Quiet evenings after Emma went to bed when they'd sit on the balcony and watch the city lights. One night, about 2 months after Lila moved in, Emma came out of her room long after bedtime. She stood in the doorway of the living room, clutching her stuffed dinosaur. "Can't sleep?" Caleb asked. Emma shook her head. "I have a question." "Okay, what is it?" She looked at Lila, then back at Caleb. "Is Lila going to be my mom?" The room went very quiet. Lila spoke first. "Emma, sweetheart, I'm not trying to replace your mom. Your mom is your mom, even if she's not around." "I know, but she doesn't want to be my mom. She told Dad that a long time ago." Caleb's heart broke. He hadn't realized Emma understood that. It's okay, Dad. I'm not sad about it anymore. I have you and Aunt Becca, and now Lila. I want to know what to call her because Lila feels weird sometimes, like she's just Dad's friend. But she's not. She's more." Lila's eyes were wet. "What do you want to call me?" Emma thought about it. "I don't know. What do you want me to call you?" "Whatever feels right to you. If you want to call me Lila, that's fine. If you want to call me something else, that's fine too." "What about Mama L?" Emma suggested. "Like, you're not my mom, but you're my Lila mom." Lila let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "I love that. If that's what you want, then yes, absolutely." Emma nodded, satisfied, and went back to bed. After she left, Lila turned to Caleb, tears streaming down her face. I didn't know she thought of me that way. She loves you. I love her too. So much. Is that okay? Is it okay that I love her like she's mine even though she's not? Of course it is. I never thought I'd be someone's parent. I never thought I'd want to be. But with Emma, it's different. It's not scary. It's just right. Caleb kissed her forehead. You're exactly what she needs, what we both need. Over the next few months, something shifted in the way Emma related to Lila. She started coming to her with problems she used to only bring to Caleb. Homework help, friend drama, questions about growing up. Lila handled all of it with a grace that amazed Caleb. She didn't try to be perfect. She just showed up consistently and loved Emma without reservation. Rebecca noticed too. She's good with her, she said one afternoon when they were at the park watching Emma play. Lila was nearby, helping her navigate the monkey bars. Yeah, she really is. I was wrong about her, Rebecca admitted. I thought she'd bail when things got hard, but she's still here. She's still here. And you're happy? Happier than I've been in a long time. Rebecca smiled. Good, that's all I wanted. That spring, Caleb got a call from Claire. It was the first time he'd heard from Emma's biological mother in over 4 years. She wanted to meet, she said, to talk, to see Emma. Caleb's first instinct was to say no, to protect Emma from the woman who'd walked away from her without looking back. But Lila convinced him to at least hear what Claire had to say. Emma deserves to know where she came from, Lila said. And maybe Claire's changed. Maybe she's ready to be part of Emma's life now. Or maybe she's just going to hurt her. Maybe. But don't you think Emma should get to make that choice? So Caleb met Claire at a coffee shop in Cambridge. She looked different than he remembered, older, more tired. She ordered a latte and spent the first 10 minutes apologizing. I know I don't deserve to be in her life, she said. I know I gave up that right a long time ago. But I've been in therapy, and I've been working on myself, and I want to know her, even if it's just once. Why now? Caleb asked. Because I'm 34 years old, and I spent the last 7 years running from the hardest decision I ever made, and I'm tired of running. What do you want from me? Permission to meet her, just coffee, just an hour, and if she doesn't want to see me again after that, I'll respect it. Caleb thought about it, about Emma, about what she'd want. I'll talk to her, but if she says no, that's it, you don't push. I won't, I promise. That night, Caleb told Emma about Claire's call. Lila sat beside him, holding his hand while he explained. Emma listened quietly, her expression unreadable. When he finished, she said, Does she want to be my mom now? I don't think so. I think she just wants to meet you, to talk to you. Why? I don't know, kiddo. Maybe she regrets leaving. Maybe she's curious about who you are. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I'll meet her, but I want Mama L to come too.
Lila looked surprised. Em, this is between you and your birth mom. I don't need to. I want you there, Emma insisted. You're my real mom. She's the person who had me. That's different. Caleb watched Lila's face crumple, watched her pull Emma into a hug. Okay, I'll be there. The meeting happened the following Saturday at a neutral location, a family-friendly cafe with a play area. Claire was already there when they arrived, sitting at a table by the window. She stood when she saw them, her hands twisting nervously. Hi, she said. You must be Emma. Emma looked up at her with those serious brown eyes. Hi. I'm Claire. Well, I guess you know who I am. You're my birth mom. Yeah, I am. They sat down, and for a few minutes nobody said anything. Then Emma, bless her, broke the ice. Do you like dinosaurs? Claire blinked, caught off guard. I don't know much about them. I love them. My favorite is Velociraptor. They hunt in packs, and they're really smart. That's cool. The conversation continued in fits and starts. Claire asked questions. What grade was Emma in? What did she like to do? Did she play any sports? Emma answered politely, but didn't volunteer much. Caleb could see her holding back, being careful. After about 45 minutes, Claire stood. I should go, but thank you for letting me meet you, Emma. You're amazing. Your dad's done an incredible job. Emma nodded. Okay, bye. As Claire walked away, Emma turned to Lila. Can we go home now? Sure, sweetheart. In the car, Emma was quiet. Lila reached back from the front seat and held her hand. How are you feeling? She asked. I don't know. She seems nice, but she's not my mom. No, she's not. You're my mom. Is that okay? Lila's voice cracked. That's more than okay. That night, after Emma was asleep, Caleb and Lila sat on the couch, processing everything. She called me her mom, Lila whispered, like officially, not Mama L, just mom. I know. That's huge. It is. Are you okay with it? Caleb pulled her close. More than okay. You've earned it. You show up every day. You love her without conditions. You're her mom in every way that matters. I never thought I'd be a parent. I was so sure it wasn't for me. But with Emma, it's different. She's different. She's special. She is. And I love her so much it scares me sometimes. Welcome to parenthood. Lila laughed through her tears. Is it always this terrifying? Always. And you do it anyway? Every single day. 2 months later, Caleb and Lila were lying in bed when she turned to him with a serious expression. I want to adopt her, she said. Officially, if that's okay with you, and if Emma wants it. Caleb felt his heart swell. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. She's my daughter. I want it to be legal. I want her to know that I'm not going anywhere. Lila, I know it's a big step. I know it's permanent, but that's the point. I want permanent. I want forever. Caleb kissed her. Let's talk to Emma. They brought it up the next morning at breakfast. Emma was pouring syrup on her pancakes when Lila said, Em, can we talk to you about something? Am I in trouble? No, nothing like that. Lila has something she wants to ask you. Emma looked at Lila expectantly. I was wondering, Lila said carefully, how you'd feel about me adopting you. It would mean that legally, I'd be your mom. You'd be my daughter, officially. Emma's eyes went wide. Really? Really, but only if you want that. It's your choice. Would I have to change my name? No, you'd still be Emma Turner, unless you wanted to add my last name too. But that's up to you. Emma thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Yes, I want that. Yeah? Yeah, you're already my mom. This just makes it real. The adoption process took 6 months. There was paperwork and court dates and a home visit from a social worker. Claire had to be notified, and she signed away her parental rights without hesitation. Through it all, Emma was excited in a way that made Caleb's heart hurt with how much she wanted this. The day the adoption was finalized, they all went to court. Emma wore her favorite dress, the one with dinosaurs on it, because of course she did.
The judge was kind, asking Emma if she understood what was happening and if this was what she wanted. Yes, Emma said clearly. Lila is my mom. This just makes it official. The judge smiled and signed the papers. Just like that, Lila Hart became Lila Hart Turner, and Emma officially had two parents who chose her. They celebrated with ice cream, Emma's choice, and that night Emma asked if she could have a new middle name. What name? Caleb asked. Hart, like Mama L's last name. So I'd be Emma Hart Turner. Lila started crying, again. She'd done a lot of that lately. Happy tears, but still. We can do that, Caleb said, if that's what you want. It is. A year and a half after the surgery, Caleb stood in his living room, their living room, his and Lila's and Emma's, and looked at the life they'd built. Emma's drawings covered the fridge. Lila's books were mixed with his on the shelves. There were photos everywhere, of the three of them at the park, at Emma's soccer games, on a vacation they'd taken to the beach. It wasn't perfect. They still fought about stupid things. Emma still had bad days. Lila still struggled sometimes with anxiety about her health. Caleb still woke up some mornings with his side aching, a reminder of what he'd given up. But it was real. It was theirs. Rebecca came over for dinner that night, and after Emma went to bed, the three adults sat on the balcony with glasses of wine. I have to say, Rebecca said, I didn't think this would work. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Caleb said dryly. I'm serious. I thought you were setting yourself up for heartbreak, but you proved me wrong, both of you. Lila smiled. We proved ourselves wrong too. How do you mean? I never thought I could do this, be a partner, be a parent. I was so convinced I wasn't built for it. But Caleb and Emma, they taught me that love isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And you? Rebecca looked at Caleb. What did you learn? Caleb thought about it. That second chances are real, that sometimes the thing you thought you lost forever comes back. And when it does, you have to be brave enough to reach for it. That's very philosophical of you. I have my moments. Later, after Rebecca left and Lila was in the shower, Caleb checked on Emma. She was asleep, her stuffed dinosaur tucked under one arm. He sat on the edge of her bed and watched her breathe, the way he'd done 1,000 times before. He thought about the night Dr. Patel had called, how terrified he'd been, how sure he was that saying yes would destroy his life. He'd been wrong. Saying yes had been the best decision he'd ever made. Not because it was easy, not because everything worked out perfectly, but because it led him here, to this moment, to this life, to a daughter who had two parents who loved her fiercely, to a partner who showed up every single day, to a family they'd built from broken pieces and second chances. Lila appeared in the doorway, her hair still damp. You okay? Yeah, just thinking. About? About how lucky I am. She came and sat beside him. We all are. I gave you a kidney, and you gave me a life. There's a difference. Caleb took her hand. I'd do it again, in a heartbeat. I know, but hopefully you won't have to. They sat there together, watching Emma sleep, and Caleb understood something he hadn't before. Love wasn't about grand gestures. It wasn't about dramatic moments or perfect endings. It was about this, the quiet moments, the everyday choices to stay, to show up, to keep trying even when it was hard. A kidney had saved Lila's life. But what came after? The hard conversations, the vulnerability, the willingness to try again despite every reason not to. That's what had saved them both. 3 years after the surgery, they went back to the hospital for their final checkup. Both of them were completely healthy. The transplant had been a complete success. Dr. Patel declared them both officially discharged from her care. You two are my favorite success story, she said, not just medically, but in every way. On the way out, Lila stopped in the lobby. This is where it started, where you showed up to save me even though you had every reason not to. I didn't have a choice. Yes, you did. You chose me. You chose us. And I'll spend the rest of my life being grateful for that. Caleb pulled her close. I didn't just save you. You saved me too. And that was the truth. They'd saved each other. Not in one dramatic moment, but in 1,000 small ones. Every time they chose to stay. Every time they chose to try. Every time they chose love over fear. That night, they picked up Emma from school and went to their favorite pizza place. Emma told them about her day, something involving a science project and a friend who'd brought a lizard to school, while they ate and laughed and just existed together. This was their life now. Not perfect, not easy, but real and full and good. After dinner, walking back to the car, Emma skipped ahead and then turned back to them. "Race you home," she called. "You're on," Lila called back, taking off after her. Caleb followed, slower because his side would never quite be the same, watching the two most important people in his world run ahead, laughing. And he thought about how sometimes the worst moments in your life, the 3 a.m. phone calls, the impossible choices, the things that scare you most, turn out to be the beginning of something beautiful. You just have to be brave enough to say yes. Here's what I've learned. Love isn't something that happens to you. It's something you choose every single day. When it's easy and when it's hard. When it makes sense and when it doesn't. I chose to save Lila's life. But more importantly, I chose to let her back into mine. And she chose to stay. She chose Emma. She chose us. Not because it was simple or guaranteed, but because some risks are worth taking. People ask me sometimes if I regret giving up my kidney. And the answer is no. Not for a second. Because that kidney gave me more than it cost me. It gave me back the woman I loved. It gave Emma a mother who chose her. It gave all of us a second chance at being a family. Life is short, too short to hold grudges, too short to let fear make your decisions, too short to walk away from people who matter just because the road ahead looks difficult. Sometimes you have to cut yourself open, literally or figuratively, to save what matters most. And yes, it hurts. Yes, it's scary. Yes, there are no guarantees, but the alternative is living half a life, playing it safe, never knowing what could have been. I'd rather live with the scars than the what-ifs. So if you're reading this and you're standing at your own crossroads, facing your own impossible choice, here's my advice. Be brave. Say yes. Take the risk. Because the best things in life, the things that make it all worthwhile, are almost always on the other side of fear. And sometimes, the thing you save ends up saving you right back.